So before you start shopping for the special varieties and stuff that you're going to start sticking in your garden, I want to take you through how to read a seed packet or, how to read the description of a plant online for when you're looking to shop for your seeds, because there's some really, really awesome information that you're going to be able to gather as to whether this guy is right for me or not. It's going to come down to, does it fit within your growing season, and does it fit within maybe its maintenance level? Some plants are sassy. They have more maintenance than others. Some are just super carefree and fantastic. And I picked an example here just because I want to take you through sort of how I would use this information. Now, this is a ground cherry. If you're unfamiliar and you've got some extra space in your garden, I highly recommend these guys. They also go by the name of golden berries. They're these little paper covered yellow, almost like a miniature tomato they look like, but they're sweet and tangy, and they're really, really great. I only just started them last year and I'm absolutely hooked on them. So I want to take you through what's going to be on this that's going to help me decide what I'm going to need to do for its care. So first very interesting piece of information here is it says 60 to 65 days after transplanting for maturity. And we talked about days to maturity in another video. But this one is different. This is after transplanting. It's giving me days to maturity. And on the back here, it's telling me that I have to plant this 8 weeks prior before transplanting. So that's 2 full months essentially indoors. I need to get it started, plus another, 2 months or so outside before it's going to be producing for me. This is really important information. And it also says it's slow to get started, so good to know. It means it's a little more high maintenance. It also says that it wants constant moisture and bottom heat to germinate. So that's awesome, because lots of times you don't get that information. So that means that this is a very particular seed that needs that heat. So if you don't have a heat mat, you're gonna probably wanna stick it on the top of your refrigerator, or maybe even like a heated blanket or something like that on its super, super low setting is gonna be probably a requirement just for really good success. It says that it is slower than a tomato to germinate, and it's comparing it to tomatoes because this is in the tomato family. And it's good to note, because if you know that it's in a certain family, that usually means, okay, I'm gonna treat them in a certain way. But if it has its own special things, the seed packet's usually gonna tell you. 10 to 14 days for germination, which is a long time. 14 days potentially, that's 2 weeks. And that's right about the time where you start to think, okay, crap, did I do something wrong? Why are my seeds not coming up? So note that in your journal when you start seeding stuff. It's giving me dimensions. So you'll almost always find dimensions of the plant on, the seed packet or the information online. So 24 inches tall. So I've got, 2 feet. That's a pretty good size. Spread is 18 inches for one plant. So it's a pretty good sized plant. And so it's saying spacing 24 to 36 inches apart after last frost. And that's important information. So this plant does not like frost. It is not a hardy plant or a semi-hardy plant. And also very interesting information is it says it likes, or a fairly light feeder. So if we think about heavy feeders, light feeder, this is different. Most tomato plants are considered heavy feeders. They like a good consistent amount of food at all times, but this guy's not, which is great. And it actually says right on the thing, a good application of compost or well-rotted manure at planting should be adequate for the whole season, which is pretty sweet. I really like that. Now, it's also saying that something underneath like mulch for weed suppression is not a bad idea, because what this plant does is it actually drops the cherries right off the plant. That's how you know they're done and ready to pick. So they're going to end up all over the ground. So if they're easy to pick off of mulch, that makes life easy. It says also, which I really like, is cherries will keep for a number of weeks once picked if left in their husks, which is great. That's important information. When a package says great for storage, long-term storage, anything like that, that kind of scooches it higher in my list, because let's face it, at the end of the season, there's a lot of all of the things. And the more stuff that I can stretch out into the fall before I either have to eat it or preserve it is like win-win in my books. The other thing that I really love that it says on here, and a lot of information seed packets will tell you this, is it does not have any major pests or diseases. Fantastic. That is always a really good thing. Some plants are naturally prone to diseases. So if you see it saying, you know, so-and-so resistant or something like that, that's always a good thing. That's something that you want to look for. So a lot of this stuff is going to tell you whether it's going to be right for you. So you've maybe already decided, I definitely want tomatoes, or I definitely want cucumbers, or whatever it is, but what cucumber are you going to choose? I mean, there's lots of them out there. What are the unique things that are going to make your life easier as a gardener? You know, does it really produce well? Does it, you know, preserve for a really long time? Does it germinate really, really easily, or is it more challenging? These are all the things that you're going to want to decide. And I really recommend, you know, if a plant, if something says, you know, slow to get started, longer germination, requires bottom heat, if I didn't have the setup that I have, this might deter me a little bit, because you know, I'm going to have a little bit of a lower chance of success. And if my space is limited inside, I'm going to want to dedicate it to that stuff that's really going to thrive and make my life easier, not more difficult. You have to really honestly ask yourself that. If you see something is really high maintenance, but it's super colorful and pretty and whatever, maybe just set it to the side. You know, at the end of the season, do you want to be frustrated by a plant that's all, you know, pretty but not really doing much of anything? Or do you just want that one plant that just goes gangbusters and produces like crazy for you? I would say almost always, unless you have an abundance of space and time, pick the one that sounds like it's going to be much more productive with less work, and also that days to maturity, that it's going to fit within your season easily, and whether you want to start it indoors or not. If it tells you straight up, I need to start 8 weeks indoors, and you are not seed starting, you're not starting any of your own seeds, you want to buy all your starter plants, this is not the seed packet for you. You're going to need to be buying something that says plant outside after the last frost. So I hope that gives you a little bit of clarity when you start looking at and trying to decide your varieties. Try not to get too caught up with over analyzing everything. I'm definitely guilty of that. If little red flags happen like right off the bat, like if you see something and you're like, just immediately go with that gut instinct and move on. Move on to the next variety. Just don't even, you know, dwell on it, just move on. There is like hundreds of varieties of all the plants. You will find one that is going to be just right for you. So we will see you in the garden, and I'm excited to see what varieties you have decided on.